Cole screamed over the deafening roar of the turbines shielding his eyes from the ice. "He's coming in too fast. He's going to crash. He's committing to the hard deck," Sarah yelled back, her voice cutting through the mechanical scream of the engines. "Stand your ground!" The helicopter dropped like a stone, just as Sarah had instructed. The pilot banked heavily to the left, using the elevator housing to block the worst of the wind shear. He didn't hover to find a gentle touchdown. Doing so would have allowed the gusting wind to flip them. Instead, he slammed the Black Hawk down onto the concrete pad. The landing gear shrieked in protest, the struts compressing violently under the impact, but the aircraft held. The rotors continued to scream overhead, slicing through the freezing rain. Before the skids had even settled, the side door of the chopper was kicked open. A flight medic jumped out, slipping on the icy concrete, desperately pulling a wheeled stretcher behind him. On it was a tiny, frail figure, strapped beneath a mountain of thermal blankets. Sarah was already moving. She didn't slip. She navigated the icy, wind-battered roof with terrifying precision. She reached the stretcher just as the pilot, a tall man in a flight helmet and no-mech suit, jumped out of the cockpit to help guide the gurney. "We lost a pulse 30 seconds ago," the flight medic screamed over the rotor wash. "Traumatic cardiac arrest, suspected pericardial tamponade." "Get her inside," Sarah roared, grabbing the front of the gurney. As they shoved the stretcher toward the safety of the elevator, the pilot grabbed the back rail to help push. Under the harsh glare of the halogen floodlights, the pilot's eyes met Sarah's. The man froze. He literally stopped pushing the gurney, his gloved hand slipping from the metal rail. His jaw slackened beneath his communication microphone. He stared at the gray-haired 52-year-old nurse, as if he were looking at a ghost. "Move, Captain!" Sarah barked, her eyes flashing with dangerous intensity. The pilot snapped out of his shock, shoving the gurney into the elevator car. Cole and the flight medic crowded in alongside the child. As the heavy steel doors began to close, shutting out the storm and the roar of the helicopter, the pilot stood on the roof, rain lashing his face. Just before the doors sealed, Cole heard the pilot shout a single bewildered word over the storm. "Colonel, the descent to the emergency department was a frantic battle for a 7-year-old's life." The little girl, Emily, was pale as porcelain, her lips tinged blue. The monitor attached to her stretcher showed a flat, unyielding green line. "Start chest compressions," Cole yelled, his panic resurfacing. He reached to push on the child's chest. Sarah physically swatted his hands away with enough force to sting. "No compressions. She has a pericardial tamponade. Her heart is trapped in a sac of blood. Compressions will rupture her myocardium. We need to drain the sac right now." She ripped open the sterile pericardiocentesis tray before Cole could even process her words. "Get the ultrasound probe on her chest. Find the window. I'm going to needle her." I should do it. I'm the surgeon." Cole stammered, his hands shaking. "Your hands are shaking, Doctor," Sarah said, her voice dropping into that terrifyingly calm, absolute register. She looked him dead in the eye. "My hands are not. Probe, now." Cole obeyed. He grabbed the portable ultrasound wand from the corner of the elevator and pressed it to the child's sternum. The black and white screen flickered to life, showing a massive dark halo of fluid suffocating the tiny, struggling heart muscle. Sarah took the massive spinal needle from the tray. She didn't hesitate. She didn't double-check. Guided by a lifetime of muscle memory, forged in environments far worse than a hospital elevator, She slid the needle just below the child's xiphoid process, angling it perfectly toward the left shoulder. She pulled back on the syringe. Instantly, thick, dark blood filled the plastic barrel. "Fluid is draining," Sarah announced calmly, locking a stopcock in place and attaching a larger drainage bag. "Heart is decompressing." Cole stared at the ultrasound monitor. The dark halo around the heart began to shrink. Suddenly, the trapped heart gave a weak, erratic flutter. Then it squeezed. Then it squeezed again, establishing a rapid but steady rhythm. The flat line on the cardiac monitor instantly spiked into beautiful soaring peaks. Emily gasped, her tiny chest heaving as blood finally circulated to her brain. The elevator doors chimed and slid open to the chaotic ER. Chloe was standing exactly where Sarah had told her to be, the pediatric crash cart and O-negative blood ready, pulse restored. Sarah called out to the stunned room, immediately taking the handles of the gurney. "Trauma Bay 3 is clear. Cole, prep her for a surgical window to manage the bleed." Chloe pushed 1 unit of O-negative on a rapid infuser, warm it to 38 degrees. The young staff, previously running around like headless chickens, fell into line instantly. They didn't look to Dr. Cole for orders. They looked to Sarah. The shift in power was absolute and undeniable. For the next 4 hours, the emergency department operated like a well-oiled military machine. Guided by Sarah's quiet, ruthless efficiency, they stabilized the victims of the highway pileup. By 2 a.m., the last critical patient had been wheeled up to the surgical intensive care unit. The ER was left looking like a war zone littered with bloody gauze, discarded plastic packaging, and empty IV bags. Dr. Cole sat on a rolling stool near the nurse's station, his scrub top soaked with sweat. He was exhausted, but for the first time in his life, his arrogance was entirely gone. He stared across the room at Sarah, who was quietly, methodically wiping down a stainless steel counter with a bleach wipe. She moved at her usual steady, deliberate pace. The sliding glass doors of the ER hissed open. Walking into the department was the medevac pilot. He had stripped off his flight helmet, revealing short, sweat-matted brown hair. His flight suit was stained with grease and rain. He walked past the security guard, past Chloe, and straight toward the center of the room. Cole stood up. "Captain, I want to thank you for that landing. You saved that girl's life." The pilot didn't even look at Cole. He walked straight past the hotshot trauma surgeon and stopped 3 feet behind Sarah. He stood at strict, rigid attention. "Captain David Miller, United States Army 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment, retired." The pilot said, his voice carrying clearly across the quiet emergency room. Sarah stopped wiping the counter. She let out a long, quiet sigh, tossing the bleach wipe into a biohazard bin. She turned around, a faint, almost sad smile touching her lips. "At ease, Miller," Sarah said softly. "You fly civilian medevac now. We're out of the sandbox." Miller didn't relax. "I'd know that voice anywhere on a radio, ma'am. You guided my Black Hawk down into the Korangal Valley under heavy mortar fire in 2012 when my tail rotor was shot to hell. You saved my entire crew." Chloe, who had been eavesdropping from the medication room, dropped a plastic basin. It clattered loudly against the linoleum. Cole stepped forward, his mind struggling to process the scene. "Wait, Korangal Valley. You two know each other." Miller finally turned his head to look at Dr. Cole. The pilot's eyes were filled with a mixture of profound respect and simmering anger. "Know each other?" Miller echoed, a harsh bark of a laugh escaping his lips. He looked around at the young, exhausted nurses and the arrogant surgeon. You people have absolutely no idea who you've been working with. Do you? I've heard the rumors about this hospital. I know you call her the slow nurse. I know you think she's washed up. Miller pointed a firm finger at Sarah. This is Colonel Sarah Jenkins, former commander of the United States Air Force, 24th Special Tactics Squadron's Medical Wing. She is a combat rescue officer. She has deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. She has performed open-heart surgery in the dirt while taking enemy fire. She holds a silver star and a Purple Heart. She's forgotten more about trauma medicine than you will learn in your entire miserable life, doctor. The silence in the ER was absolute. It was so quiet you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Chloe covered her mouth with her hands, tears of intense shame welling in her eyes. She remembered calling Sarah Molasses Jenkins. She remembered mocking her for double-checking blood barcodes. She had been mocking a decorated war hero who was operating on a level of precision they couldn't even fathom. Cole felt the blood drain from his face. He remembered screaming at her. He remembered telling her she was a liability and belonged in a podiatry clinic. He felt physically sick to his stomach. Is that true? Cole whispered, his voice cracking. Sarah looked at Miller, offering him a gentle, reproving look. That's enough, David. They don't need a resume. They need to show some damn respect, Colonel Miller snapped fiercely. They are young, Sarah replied, her voice soothing, carrying the heavy wisdom of a commander who had seen too many young people die. They think speed is the same thing as control. They will learn. Tonight, they learned. Sarah turned her gaze to Cole and Chloe. There was no anger in her pale blue eyes. There was no vindictiveness. There was only the immense quiet grace of someone who had nothing left to prove to anyone. Dr. Cole, Sarah said, her voice returning to its normal quiet cadence. You did good work tonight. When the panic broke, you focused on the child. That's what matters. Not the ego, not the speed, just the patient. Cole took a shaky step forward. He, the golden boy of St. Jude's, the untouchable trauma god, suddenly felt very small. I am so sorry, Sarah. I have been arrogant. I have been blind. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Doctor, Sarah replied, picking up a fresh bleach wipe from the canister. Just remember that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous, and rushing blindly into chaos only creates more casualties. She turned back to the counter, her orthopedic shoes squeaking softly against the polished floor. She resumed wiping down the stainless steel, her movements slow, deliberate, and perfectly efficient. The ER staff watched her in reverent silence. They no longer saw a tired, slow, gray-haired woman. They saw the commander. They saw the apex predator of trauma medicine hiding in plain sight. They knew without a shadow of a doubt that as long as Sarah Jenkins was in their emergency room, they would never lose another fight against death. If this gripping story of hidden heroism, unyielding grace, and the ultimate reality check kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. Don't forget to share this incredible real-life medical drama with your friends and smash that subscribe button so you never miss another jaw-dropping story of everyday heroes hiding in plain sight. Leave a comment below. Have you ever underestimated someone only to be proven completely wrong? Let us know.